I was going through your website and I identified, a few of like your revenue streams because I see that you do consultation calls, you do day tours with people, and then you also help people find a home.
I just thought to myself, there's so many different revenue streams here. I need to focus. So I distilled it into CSP. And that was, like you said, coaching, scouting tours, and property. Coaching is, I do like $100 for 45 minutes, and it's great. It's quick cash. A lot of people really find it extremely helpful.
Scouting, what are the logistics around that?
There's a bit of a test, and I'm just taking them around in my own car, which is great. The property side of things as well is a big revenue stream. I get a referral fee on people who buy properties through my broker. I'm just very careful of not trying to push people into stuff that they don't like, and I don't want to become this salesman type because I am an authentic person and I don't want to be a salesman.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Video Craft Show presented by Video Husky. I am Jon Santiago, and every other week I interview content creators about their stories, strategies, and adventures in building an online audience through video. Now, have you ever wondered what it's like to live in Portugal, specifically in the southernmost tip of the country? Then you probably should check out Algarve Addicts on YouTube. Since 2018, Algarve Addicts has been sharing perspectives from foreign expats on where to live and what to do around the region. The channel is the brainchild of Nick Robinson, an expat himself, who moved to Portugal more than 2 decades ago from South Africa. He started Algarve Addicts back in 2018 after selling a paddleboarding business that he started 3 years prior. Now, in this episode, I speak with Nick about building a business out of Algarve Addicts, as well as a host of other topics, including the services he offers to generate revenue from the channel, how he stuck with YouTube in spite of growing fewer than 100 subscribers during his first 2 years as a content creator, and why collaboration trumps competition in content creation and business. We talk about those topics and so much more in this particular episode of the Video Craft Show presented by Video Husky. Want to remind all of you too, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or here on YouTube to catch the show. We're also available on all other major podcasting platforms. And make sure to like this video if you enjoy the podcast. We are always looking to hear from you, and leave a comment too. So without further ado, let's go ahead and toss it to my conversation with Nick from Algarve Addicts. Nick, thank you so much for joining me on the Video Craft Show presented by Video Husky, man. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. It's great to be here. We've been talking for a long time, and it's nice to get on this podcast.
Yeah, I know. It's always exciting to me when I get to chat with people who are located elsewhere in the world. So you are located in Portugal, it's the Algarve, right? That is the correct pronunciation of where you are located.
Absolutely, it's the Algarve. It's the southernmost portion of Portugal, and it's basically Europe's holiday hotspot.
Wow. So you sent me some good material in terms of preparing for this conversation. And I usually start these conversations with guests about their own personal story and their background of how they eventually got to video as like a platform for themselves to reach people. But your story in Portugal really dates back to almost, little more than 20 years ago, right? When you moved there initially for a job with your cousin to manage his restaurant.
Yeah, because I was working in corporate IT, information technology in Cape Town in South Africa. And it was 1999 and everything was going crazy. The dot-com bubble and everything was just going nuts. And I was changing from job to job every 6 months or so and like doubling my salary every go. And it was just really hands-on stuff and it was going nuts. And then my cousin came out of the blue and said, I want you to come and manage my restaurant. And I was like, no, you must be crazy. I'm not going to do that. And then a year later, I'd sort of broken up with my fiance and I was sitting in a new job and I was selling credit card payment gateways, which I had no clue what that was. And I was trying to figure out how to do this job. And I thought, you know what? I've had enough of all this stuff. I'm going to go to Portugal for 6 months, chill out and see what it's like. And then just contact, because I always sort of envisioned myself in a Mediterranean lifestyle and thinking about that kind of thing. So I did it, jumped on a plane and went, and I loved Portugal so much that I set up my own little web development unit. and employed some people over the internet in those days, like from Russia and India, to help me building websites for local people and also for international clients. So
wow, so you were doing a lot of stuff that now has kind of become commonplace in like the 2020s. I mean, like this whole digital nomad scene, and I mean, you were hiring people remotely before there was Upwork and
exactly,
Fiverr and all of that, right?
Exactly,
how did you source all those people? Were you just finding them through message boards, or I mean, how did you source talented candidates for those roles?
Yeah, absolutely. Back in those days, it was message boards and forums and all the design, because it was a web designing basically. All the designers had these forums, and we'd say, hey, well, what about this guy, this guy, this guy? And there was also a forum. I can't remember what it was called, but it was very similar to Upwork, but obviously in a different format and not in apps. So that was all happening in that stage, but it just wasn't as prevalent and as easy to use as it is now. But scary sometimes.
So how long did you do the manager gig at your cousin's restaurant before just going full time, basically like remote, right? On like the web development and eventually digital marketing business?
Yeah, that only happened for 6 months. I was only supposed to go there for the summer to my cousin's restaurant. And I loved it so much. I really enjoyed it. It was great working at night and then just exploring this new, amazing location, all the beaches and the cliffs. And it's really quite a spectacular location. So I was just exploring that during the day. And then after the 6 months, I was fully into digital marketing and carried on and learned as much as I could about it. And it progressed over the years. Obviously, social media came along in 2006, 2007. So that wasn't even around then. I mean, I think a lot of us might struggle to imagine what life was like before Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. But it was pretty novel.
Yeah. What were some of like the marketing tactics that you utilized before social media? And you can hold this follow-up question to it, but I'm curious about any timeless or lasting principles that still apply to what you do today.
Well, I mean, it's mainly about people, to be honest. It was like, I think maybe you're looking for like this technical answer, but it was all about the people and just speaking to the locals on the ground here and leveraging the technologies that we could as fast as possible. So it's very much, all about personal relationships.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, that's definitely something that I've learned in terms of working in marketing and even in sales, is just sometimes I think we forget these days, because you're communicating with people on a screen, and sometimes you're just talking to them through text messages that, there is a human element to everything that we do here. So that's definitely wise advice, I would say. So let's fast forward to, several years later, you're like settled into Portugal. You started a digital marketing business, right? In 2000. No, you started a paddleboarding business in 2015.
Yeah.
Correct?
So basically when I arrived just after I left the restaurant, I mean, I call it digital marketing, but it's kind of not really. It was just all about building websites and managing email programs for people and things like that. And then as things progressed, and did a little bit of social media, and all kinds of other things, which stemmed off from that. But yeah, in 2014, I obviously was working digitally, sitting down a lot of the time, and I started to get a pain in my buttock area, and I was like, "Wow, what's this all about?" So I stood up and I was like, and I checked it. I was actually a pain in my coccyx, and I Googled it, and I was like, "Well, how on earth do you fix this?" And it was a horrific solution. So I thought, okay, cool, this is not going to happen. I've got to get off my seat and start doing something a little bit more outdoors. And I'd already started looking towards doing something like a blog, and I was following Pat Flynn on Smart Passive Income and those kind of stuff. So I was trying to distance myself from my daily client work, because clients are difficult to deal with, and I wanted to do something on my own so I could generate some own revenue from what I was doing. So I thought content marketing was a great idea. So I looked into blogging. And I thought, okay, great. In order for me to get up off the seat, I'm going to have to do some sort of outdoor blogging. So I had started this blog called Outdoors in Portugal. We went around doing little adventures all over Portugal, and then writing about it and stuff like that. And that eventually led to me writing a lot about paddleboarding companies, because it was this new thing back in 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you tried it?
I haven't. I've seen it, and in fact, when I was doing some research and watching some of the old videos on that channel that you had, it made me think, oh, that would be really cool to do. I've seen it. I've seen paddleboarding in places. I think when was the last place I definitely? I think somewhere in Southeast Asia. The last time I was there in 2019. But yeah, I know that people now do yoga on like paddle boards too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they do everything. You can do workouts, you can do long distance expeditions, you can do anything. But
Hmm.
I think a lot of people just think a paddleboard is like a plaything that's for hire at the beach. And it's a proper
Hmm.
sport. I mean, there's a world stand-up paddle world tour. There's a whole deal. So I really immersed myself into this. I actually started a podcast all about stand-up paddle. I started my own stand-up paddle business. I went and did some certifications. I did about instructor certifications, and we just took basically spread out maps of the Algarve and looked for all the blue spots and the lakes and the rivers, and just went and explored it in depth. And we just paddle. And then we started doing tours for people. And at the same time, I was like, great, this is a good example to put all my skills from the digital side into a real business. So I started marketing and doing, Facebook ads, Google ads, everything. Started doing videos, those videos that you saw. And that actually, it worked out that I arrived on the beach and all my competitors on the beach were saying, where did you get all these people from? I've never seen you. And I'm like, well, I got them from the internet. They're all coming over. So it worked out really well, actually. It was a good case study.
Yeah. So you started that company. Now, were you, I guess to run it initially, did you partner with other existing paddleboard companies, for the equipment and the gear, or did you just basically build the audience first? And then once you had the audience, you're like, well, I think that there's like proof of concept here. I feel comfortable with the risk of having to purchase and acquire all this equipment to run this company.
Yeah, I just kind of went in head first. But the thing is, in Portugal, there's quite a lag with, all the paperwork and the bureaucracy. So we actually obviously had to get licenses and insurances and all that kind of stuff. And that took some time. So, I had done a lot of research in the area and I thought, this is definitely a sure thing. People are going to love it. And I knew it was going to work. So I just thought it was going to work a lot better than it did. So I ended up having 3 years of amazing fun on the beach and going down to the beach every single day paddleboarding. I made enough money to get by, but it wasn't exactly something that I could see myself, retiring with. So after 3 years,
Gotcha.
I was like, I got to get back to start doing something a little bit more serious because I felt a bit guilty.
Yeah. I mean, what were the biggest challenges of running that business? Was it just the seasonality of it or client acquisition, customer acquisition? I mean, I'm curious about that.
Well, to be honest, the custom acquisition was really easy because, you put up some beautiful photographs and everyone's like, oh man, I got to do that. But the weather was a big issue. And as you say, seasonality was massive. But when you are on a paddleboard, you'll realize that the wind has such an amazing effect on you. You act like a sail. So if you stand up anything that is like slightly offshore wind, you're going to be visiting, in our case, Morocco quite quickly. So, so what you need to do is we need to go out in really flat, level water, especially for beginners. And that's normally on a lake. But the problem is, well, not the problem, it's actually quite a nice thing. We've got these incredible caves down here in the Algarve. So people see photographs of all these caves and they think, I want to go there. But the water's a bit wavy when you get there. So it's not always the most ideal place to start. But so those were the challenges. And also local bureaucracy played a bit of a role. I remember arriving on the beach one day and a policeman came up to me and said, you need to get off the beach. And I said, why? He said, well, you don't have the right license. So I showed him my license. And I said, this is my license. I'm allowed to be here. What's the problem? He said, no. That's not the right license. You got to go. And it was just all trumped up stuff and all the locals, just wanting to take over the beach. And I was like, okay, well, let's give it to the locals. I'll move down the beach. So I went to another beach. But still, it was hard.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And I'm sure you learned a lot of lessons from that you, thought, hey, I can do this a little bit better with a different business. And so eventually what you ended up doing was selling that was it to another competitor? Basically, you basically sold them like the marketing assets because they could then just pull in the audience that you were already, drawing in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I sold them that, and gave them the YouTube channel, gave them all the website, all the email list, everything. So that went all over to them, and then I carried on looking for the next big thing, and that turned out to be this project called Algarve Addicts.
Wow. Yeah, before we dive into that, I'm curious about, I'm sure there are some creators out there or YouTubers or even just businesses out there who are utilizing video that probably would want to at some point explore the idea of selling a business. And I'm curious about how that process went for you. How do you even determine, pricing or what you think is fair pricing for a business that you built?
Yeah, look, it's really difficult because the price of a business is only as much as someone's going to pay for it. But generally, you look at a yearly turnover, and then you start with a yearly turnover and say, okay, cool. If you earned, I don't know, $100,000 in a year, that's the price of the business. But then there's obviously assets and liabilities which come into play. The more liabilities, the less value you're going to get for it. And obviously assets as well. I mean, you can get much more than the yearly turnover if you have like a really good deal coming up or it's a consistent deal over the next few years. So I think there are many different factors in valuing a business, and it's always good to get a professional involved and speak to accountants and things and work out what the going rate is before you start valuing it out. But then, as I said, it's only worth as much as somebody who's going to pay for it. So it's a very unique business, having a paddleboarding business in the Algarve in Portugal.
Yeah. How long did negotiations take? Was it fast or did it go by pretty quickly?
Oh, it was pretty quick because I knew the guy already, and we'd collaborated a little bit beforehand. We were competitors, but we were also collaborators. If I had an overflow, I'd give him more clients, and likewise. So we had a good relationship, and it was fairly easy. But yeah,
that's good.
Worked out well.
Yeah, that's good to have like more of a collaborative relationship rather than a competitive one, especially, in that kind of business. I think sometimes people think it's like a zero-sum game where they have to get all the customers and they might feel jealous that you're bringing in customers. But that's really cool that it sounds like it ended up, having that kind of approach to that relationship ended up, benefiting you at the end when you decided to exit. Because imagine if the relationship were tenuous, then it might not have gone as smoothly.
It's unbelievable how many people, and I'm sure it's not just this industry, but like, for example, the surf companies, they will, teaching people how to surf in Portugal. And sometimes these guys are just at each other's throats and they're, physically fighting on the beach, over customers, which is crazy. You just think, you don't want to do that in front. It's a business that you're trying to run. You're trying to look good in front of your customers, and it's not a good look. Not a good look.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's move on to the start of Algarve Addicts. You sold your paddleboarding business 2018. Now, what was the concept behind doing Algarve Addicts, and how long did it take you to, I guess, get some traction there with that business?
Well, it really did take me a long time, I guess, probably about 3 years. But in the beginning, the whole concept was, I remember when I arrived in the Algarve in Portugal, the only idea I had of what it was like to be here was that there were, I've seen the travel brochures, because that was all it was, of just these pretty pictures of these cliffs and things. And I was like, okay, well, that looks nice. I know nothing about this place. I'm just going to go and launch head first. And a lot of people are moving over to the Algarve or coming here on holiday, and they don't really know what it's like. Do people speak English here? Is it just Portuguese everywhere? Can you get by? Can you even, what's life really like? And I thought I'd try and show what real life is like in the Algarve. And it's very, very easy to live down here as a foreigner, as an expat. And initially I was trying I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't find my niche, and I was just trying to make videos and stuff. Made a few videos, I hardly got any traction. Started a podcast. I did 46 episodes of a podcast interviewing all the local movers and shakers around here, which was great for me. It was excellent connections, but it didn't really develop a big audience. I mean, people were emailing me, but you know what it's like with podcasts? You don't get an immediate comment underneath the podcast, so you don't have that direct relationship with your audience. So I don't feel like I had it in those days. So I felt I was a little bit detached from the audience, and then somebody said to me, it was actually during COVID, as a friend of mine said, Nick, just make a video on where to live in the Algarve and aim it at American foreigners. And I was like, okay, I did it. And then within literally just blew up. It was like 250,000 views it's got now. And I had 82 subscribers on my channel.
That's still your most popular video, right?
Yeah, it still is. And that's what I'd love to talk to you about as well. Why? I mean, I should have made a better one since, but but yeah, it just blew up and I was really excited and I thought, okay, I'm going to invest in this now because I can see that there's potential. There's definitely a market here. So I put all I had into it and I built from, well, there was 82 subscribers up to about 17,000 now. So it was exciting, right? Yeah.
So that was at the beginning of COVID. Was like 2020 when that video took off?
November 2020.
Okay. So, and then you started the channel back in the beginning of 2018. Yeah. So you went basically like 2 years kind of just getting no or very little response to any video, to any of the videos that you were making. I mean, what kept you going in those moments, in those times? Like, because a lot of people 2 years in would be like, forget this, I have 82 subscribers, I quit.
Well, it wasn't all about the YouTube. It was the podcast I was going, and I thought, okay, it's going to make some traction. And I was doing other work on the side, like videos work and digital marketing for other people and stuff. But I remember it got to the stage where I emailed all my subscribers, and there were probably a couple of hundred. And most of them probably friends and family and thing. I said, guys, if you know anybody what to do, I don't know what to do with this Algarve Addicts thing. If you enjoy the content, let me know. But I'm actually at the point of giving up. If you've got any ideas, what should I do? And it was amazing. Quite a few people came back and said, hey, I'll do this, or what about this, or what about that? And I got some feedback. And I think it may have been as a result of that email as well, that my friend Veronica, who's also got a YouTube channel, she came along and said, make this video. And I did, and then it just felt great because I really enjoyed the fact that it all I was looking for was a sign, and that was enough for me that video started doing well. I was like, okay, great, because you're right, as you just said, after 2 years, it's quite demoralizing, just plugging away, and nothing's going right. It's hard.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people who would have already quit way before you did, way before you got your first big hit. I mean, I think there are people who probably even 3 months in or 4 months in are just like, this is not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. But you got some good indicators. And I guess also too, like, I mean, the good indicators were just being able to network and connect with those people around the region doing the podcast, correct? So that kept you wanting to continue making content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did, for sure. But I think that's a key lesson for people who want to get into this kind of thing is consistency and just plugging away over time. I mean, it's not going to work instantly. It's a long, hard investment, I think. Yeah. And everyone I've heard on podcasts, and because obviously I listen to a lot of your podcast and a lot of others, it's not instant success. It takes a long time. But yeah, these people that I've met have really helped. And I'm actually considering doing a season 2 of the podcast as well, just to try and get some more long form content in there, to try and, because my main mission is to try and help people relocate to Portugal. And there's a lot of people wanting to relocate to Portugal right now. And it's very alien for a lot of them. They have no idea. Like, the most basic questions I get all the time is, like, what kind of cereal is there on the shelves of the shopping malls? And, are there shopping malls and that kind of stuff?
Really?
Yeah.
And have you made content around that yet?
No, I've basically focused content all around the towns, and I really enjoy using Google Earth, because I figured out that Google will let you use screen grabs of Google Earth in your video if you leave their logo in. And I was like, oh wow, because I thought it would be a copyright issue. But it's great, and I love using Google Earth, and I merge it with drone videos, and I get in and I just try and show people an overview of the town and what it's like to live there, what shopping's like, medical, real estate, all that kind of stuff that people who are just coming for a party on a holiday don't necessarily need to know. But if you're living there, it's vital information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you started it, you had this, like, again, to reiterate, you had this idea around just trying to help people who were, in the similar position that you were in when you first moved to Portugal. But then did you already have the vision of like, okay, here is how I can actually turn this into a business. Because I was going through your website and I identified, a few different ways. And you can correct me if I'm wrong in terms of like your revenue streams, because I see that you do consultation calls, you do day tours with people, and then you also help people find a home. So I'm imagine that maybe you're getting like a referral fee or something by referring them to like a trusted realtor that you've worked with in the past. You're also referring people to, like a visa consultant, right? But were these things that you already had in mind in terms of like, this is how I can turn this into a business, or did that like just grow, or did those ideas come with time?
No, those ideas came with time. I mean, in the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. I just saw this traction and I was like, okay, cool. How can I capitalize on this? And then as I was doing it, I was realizing, and I got more into it and I understood a little bit more about it. And I realized that there was this whole process of people when they relocate to another country, how they came. There's like a whole ladder of different revenue streams there. So, for example, like you said, visas. First of all, people have to get visas, so you can, provide them visa information, and then how to do visas, and then to lawyers. People want lawyers, so I've got a lawyer that I refer to, and then she gives me a commission as well, or a referral fee. And there's all of these monetizable items all the way down the list. So what I got all these, and also I just thought to myself, there's so many different revenue streams here. I need to focus because. Focus is obviously vital if you want to get anywhere. So I distilled it into CSP, and that was, like you said, coaching, scouting tours, and property. And those are the three main revenue streams. So coaching is, do like $100 for 45 minutes, and it's great. It's quick cash, and it really is helpful. A lot of people really find it extremely helpful. And that's what really drives me, to be honest. I want to help people, and that really gives me a bit of a buzz, helping them out. So, yeah.
Yeah, with those coaching calls, what are like the common things that people ask you about or talk to you about on those calls?
Well, the majority of it is where to live in the region, because it's a 100-mile wide region, and there's a lot of towns in it. And it's not like it's one city and you can go and live in. I suppose if you're going to New York, you'd be like, what neighborhood should I pick, and what's the best? But it's all about that. It's all about where to live and what to do. And then obviously people have their own particular questions. Like, for example, some people who got kids and they want to live next to a really good school, and what are the good schools, and how long does it take to get there? And other people want to live next to the beach, and then you've got this problem with living close to the beach is much more expensive, and there's a lot more tourists there. But you've got the beach. But if you move a little bit further away from the beach, obviously it's cheaper and quieter. So it all depends on what people want to do, and it's almost like no request is the same. Everybody's slightly different. And then trying to match that up, because I can speak to them till I'm blue in the face, but they're not here and they're not physically understanding and feeling the location. So when I take them around on a day tour, they're like, "Oh wow, it's all fitting into place. It's amazing." So
okay, yeah. So it's almost like so the gateway is almost the consulting, the coaching calls. And then, on that call, if they decide to visit, you may offer them a spot to come on a day tour with you.
But I only started doing this fairly recently after I got clarity on the process, because I listened to old Tim Schmoyer. Do you know Tim Schmoyer?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Tim was a guest on the show.
Oh, brilliant!
Early
That's
guests
excellent.
on the show. Yeah.
So I was listening to him the other day, and he was saying clarity, clarity, clarity. If you want to go from 100,000 followers to 1 million followers, you have to have clarity. And I was like, well, I've only got 15, 16,000 followers, so but I still need clarity. So it was that CSP clarity, the coaching, scouting, property clarity, which really helped me, and it's been incredibly successful.
Now with the tours, those day tours, scouting, what are the logistics around that? Because I imagine you have to schedule a time to meet with these people. You have to secure maybe a vehicle to drive them around. I mean, are there a lot of logistics involved with all of that?
No, not really. And I'm doing it sort of pretty low key at the moment. And I will get it more professional as time goes by and the demand increases. but I just wanted to test it out for now. So it's a bit of a test. And I'm just taking it around in my own car, which is great. It's got all the insurances and stuff like that. And then it's easy. Just use Calendly and say, okay, pick a spot, guys, let's go.
Yeah. I imagine too, eventually if, as it grows, the demand grows and more people come, you could probably batch people together. If you could have maybe like 2 people talk to you on one call, another person talk to you on another call, and then 4 people talk to you on another call, and then group them all together to go on like a single tour, rather than taking them all individually at one point.
Because scaling it is obviously the key, isn't it? To try and get
yes.
it. And I've also been thinking of doing retreats, because I'm in touch with a lady who does retreats in Costa Rica for Americans moving down to Costa Rica. So they just go down and do like a relocation retreat, which is perfect. So we could do something like that down here. And the thing is, the property side of things as well is a big revenue stream. So like you said correctly, I get a referral fee on on people who buy properties through my broker. But it's, I'm just very careful of not trying to push people into stuff that they don't like. And I don't want to become a salesman type, because I feel that I am an authentic person, and I don't want to be a salesman. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So it's a hard line to cross.
Yeah, I think I deal with that too, working for Video Husky. For people out there who don't know, if you actually sign up to do a sales call with us, you may occasionally have me talking to you.
Yeah, I did.
And that's how Nick and I met. Well, I think you did a sales call with one of our other colleagues, but you and I talked quite a bit when you were a client of ours. But I mean, thinking about like the working relationship that we had, like eventually you left the service, which, of course we would like you to stay, but I can't force you to stay if you want to, go a different route. And the same thing goes with sales. Like if I'm in a sales call with somebody, and I get the sense that they may not necessarily be the best fit for this service, or we don't have at the moment the resources to deliver the kind of production quality that they are demanding, I won't oversell them and just try to get their money. Like it's worse bringing in somebody who has high expectations that you can't meet, versus giving somebody something that giving them a product that can actually meet their expectations or exceed it. So
absolutely.
I'm totally with you on the sales front. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just before we got on this call, basically, I just sent an email to a client, and she was more interested in a visa than she was in anything else about where to live in the Algarve. So I said to her, look, let's cancel the call that you got with me and throwing away my $100, and rather you have a conversation with the visa professional, because she'll be able to help you a lot more, because that's what you need. And I was like, yeah, well, it's $100, but you never know. She might come back.
Exactly. We'll see that $100 too, that goodwill that you're putting out to her, looking out for her best interests, that could turn into like a couple $100 down the line, maybe in terms of her referring other people to you to maybe do a day tour, or a couple other people who want to do consultation calls. You never can really measure that. And it just kind of, I guess, comes down to, whether you're, I guess, just seeing the best in people and hoping that, having the right intentions will work out in the end. Sometimes they don't, but other times, a lot of times they do, I would say.
But I think it's also a question of being in for the long haul as well, and working and benefiting.
Yes.
And I think people obviously appreciate that a lot, because you're authentic and you're looking after them. You actually care about them instead of just the quick buck. There's a lot of people out there for a quick buck as well.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the challenges of the internet these days, is sometimes you can't really tell who is in it for a quick buck or who is in it to actually deliver and service people with true value. And it's cool to see that that's what you're doing. And especially like with where you are, there are many people, I think, who are taking advantage and doing what you do. I think, we had guests on what was it, a couple months ago, Amelia and JP. They're basically the version of you, but in Ecuador.
Yes, I listened to that. That was fantastic. Yeah,
yes.
I heard that with great interest. Yeah, I really listened to that. Yeah.
We'll link to that episode in case you missed it in the show notes. But Amelia and JP are also, they're expats. They're from the US, and they moved down to Ecuador, and they have a lot of content around, things to do in Ecuador, where to live in Ecuador. And they've basically built a business and a community around that. Are you starting to see yourself build a community as well from the content that you've created online?
Absolutely. It's bizarre. I mean, I walk down the street and everyone's like, "Hey, Nick." And I'm like, "Who are you?" "Oh, okay, I've seen the videos." Because it's like a pretty small place. I mean, we've got 500,000 people here in the Algarve. And it's just, I think I've just had 1 million views. So maybe a couple of them have seen it. And it's really weird to be sort of recognized in the street, but it's kind of nice. And I just think
I was going to say, Nick, it hasn't gotten to a point where it's like overwhelming.
No.
Right? It's kind of just like a pleasant surprise when you're walking down the street and someone says, "Hey, I watch your YouTube channel."
Yeah, because I mean, they're like, excuse me. And they're all very polite and nice, because my target market are generally older, sort of 55 years old plus, people relocating. So they've got a bit of decorum. It's not like, sort of teenage kids going, "Ah, Nick." It's not my style at all, but it's it is fun and it's rewarding, and building the community is great, because I was a bit nervous about doing it, but I had a meetup last year, actually, just after I started, and about 30 people came, and I was like, wow, this is quite amazing, because I would imagine that most of them are actually overseas, but a lot of them were already here in the Algarve, and we had a great time. And I'd really want to do more of that, because when I speak to people face to face, I can understand their pain points a lot more easily, and then those translate into much better videos. So I think that's fine.
Yeah. Now, are you using those opportunities, to get those pain points to generate ideas for content as well? And on top of that, like, what other ways do you think of ideas for your YouTube channel?
Well, there's so many ways, and I think my trouble is to try and focus on a few ways, because if you sort of hitting all different spots it just gets a little bit diffused. But for example, I've been quite keen to do sort of hand-holding subscription experience somehow, so people know that whenever they have a random question, they can just get on and ask me a question without giving out my phone number and people bugging me at 9 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning. And I came across this program, actually, again, by Tim Schmoyer. It's called, what was it called? Volley. Have you heard of Volley?
No, I haven't. So
basically, it's like a video messaging system. So I can make a video on Volley, and then everyone can respond with a video question. And then you can respond.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can respond.
I understand what that is. Yeah.
So that might be one way of doing a subscription model through that, and just helping people to get some meaningful answers to their questions. But at the moment, as I said, I'm focusing on those 3 points: the coaching, the scouting, and the property. And the property it's almost like setting up a whole property real estate agency all on its own, when I'm not a real estate agent, so it's quite hard going. But I'm trying to figure that out.
Exactly. Well, it's almost like you just serve as like a marketing channel for a lot of these businesses, right? Like, a lawyer who provides legal services, they need clients, but they may not necessarily know how to acquire those clients or reach those prospects themselves. A visa agent, the same thing, or a visa consultant. And so you've already kind of got this platform that is kind of like the all-in-one source for anybody who is trying to move to the Algarve. And it just makes sense to work out a deal with you, because now they don't have to work. They don't have to think about marketing themselves. They've already got a partnership with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It definitely works like that. And as one grows over time, which is also another concern of mine, is like, how to grow and what kind of content to create and how should I? Because basically what I've done, as I mentioned, I've done all the towns in the Algarve. I made videos about all the towns in the Algarve, and I'm thinking of now maybe moving up to Lisbon, which is the capital of Portugal, and there's a lot of attraction in Lisbon, and people need to know a lot of information about Lisbon as well. So geographically is a way I think I might want to expand, but also creating a team and bringing people up, because as we discussed, I mean, one of my biggest problems is the fact that I'm not a trained videographer, and I don't do it in a very structured way. And I think if you do it in a very structured way, it's easy to pass that on to somebody else and get other people to help you. And I struggle with that. So I'm really trying to learn how to be a better, more focused and videographer, because that would be able to up my output a lot more.
Yeah, when you shoot your videos, are you typically shooting them almost like run and gun style?
Absolutely,
very like unscripted, right? Just mostly based off of your existing knowledge of the area.
Yeah, I basically go and capture all that stuff. I mean, I will do a little bit of prep work to find out where the major locations are, but I know these areas so well that I'll just go and shoot all the major parts of it, and then I'll try and have a bit of fun as well and blend a bit of a story into it as well. And then afterwards, I'll sit down in front of the edit suite and I'll be like, okay, this is all the content I've got, how I'm going to do this properly. And then I go and do a lot more research, and then I do voiceovers then and there. And I add in a lot of Google Earth video that I was talking about, the Google Earth screen grabs. And then it all comes together in a very sort of organic way. And it's not super structured. So I think it's vital to have a structure to proceed and to be able to get people to help me with it, because I want to try and, I mean, obviously the more videos you make, in my experience, the more, the more you grow.
Yeah. Well, I remember talking to you when you were a client of ours, and the biggest challenge for you in the editing process is just you come up with ideas in the middle of an edit. When you're in control of it, when you're sitting and you're working on like Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere or whatever editing tool you use, you can apply it right away. Whereas if you were working with a video editor, it's kind of hard you have to learn how to communicate that with an editor. Because I've experienced that myself too, in terms of getting videos edited for this very show. It's very, it can be challenging to figure out that communication part of working with someone in collaboration.
But I'd imagine it's a very rewarding thing as well. So, obviously in the beginning, it's going to be hard work. And it really is going to be hard work in the beginning. But, obviously it's going to be beneficial once you've got through that initial hurdle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it does. I mean, it does feel rewarding when, you communicate something, you're not quite sure if you articulated it correctly, and the editor delivers something that, matches or even exceeds your expectations. I've had that happen a couple times. Shout out to Gio Fernandez, obviously our editor here and producer of the Video Craft Show, who does an amazing job on the content here for basically turning my ideas into something tangible. So when you tell me more about the content creation process for you. I'm curious specifically about even how you think about thumbnails these days. Is that something that you focus on, or is that something that you're still trying to refine a lot?
Well, I've kind of got it down to like a formula. So I have 3 parts to my thumbnail, and I've got a background image, an image of me, and then a sort of a tagline across, which is the title. And I haven't really varied from that. And I'm trying to, I've seen in the past, people basically doing funny things with their hands and, funny sort of exclamations on their face. And apparently that's supposed to do things. But then I also read something about YouTube is doing away with thumbnails and just doing their own automated GIFs. Have you heard about that at all?
Oh, I haven't heard about that yet. That sounds interesting. That sounds like very interesting that they would do that.
I saw a page on YouTube the other day. I think it was like a search results page, and none of the thumbnails actually showed up. It was just random stuff taken from. I mean, I stand corrected, but and I remember somebody talking about it as well. So that's a bit concerning. But as far as thumbnails and titles, obviously titles are something I struggle with a lot, because recently, I just made 2 videos about very, very similar areas, very close to each other. And the one video did extremely well and the other video didn't. And I have no idea why. So I know that titles obviously are very, very important, but I struggle with them. I really struggle with them. And, trying to make them catchy. And I suppose, what's the term? When you make a catchy title, I don't know.
Clickable.
Clickbaity.
Clickbaity, yeah.
Clickbaity.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there's a level of, I think there's a way to use clickbaity thumbnails or clickbaity titles for good and for evil. Like for evil is when you create something that's clickbaity and you click it and your expectations are not met and you're watching this video and it totally teases something that it is not. Whereas I think if you're using clickbait and you actually deliver on the promise of the thumbnail that you have created or the title that you're using, then that's great, because now people are actually like watching your video. But it's like, I think what we talked about before we started the podcast is just, it's this constant like iteration process, of trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. And I think that's like the gift and the curse of YouTube at times, is you don't really know it. You don't really know what you're doing. You're kind of just like building the plane as you fly it. Yeah. But it's an exciting part. It's exciting that you have this opportunity to actually reach this amount of people. Like you said, you've gotten like over 1 million views now at this point.
Yeah, it is really exciting, and it's super rewarding. I think obviously people suddenly think, well, what if it stops? That'll be a bit scary. So, but like you said, it's very important I think to innovate and just to try new things and see what works and what doesn't. Because like I said, I've done all these videos about the Algarve. I want to start doing some trips through Portugal and just really show people a little bit more about the country and have a lot of fun doing it, and doing some deals with hotels and things like that. So the kind of
exactly
influencer style of things. But at the same time, I'm essentially building a relocation business around my channel, and it's not all about the channel. It's about the business as well. So it's quite an interesting time, and it's really exciting times and fun as well. Super fun.
Yeah, no, and I think when I think about your channel too, of course, it's great that you're thinking about expanding beyond the Algarve, because, if you've created pretty much everything that you can around the Algarve, you're really only going to generate interest from people who want to move to that specific region of Portugal. But we all know that there's plenty of people who are interested in moving to Portugal, but like you said, maybe to Lisbon or maybe further north or somewhere else in maybe not even on the coast of Portugal. And so being able to capture those people who are interested in moving to Portugal in general will probably, be able to expand your reach and help you grow your business.
Mm-hmm. But it's, you're right. It's a fascinating point to see how quickly this has grown. And how many YouTube channels have sprung up around people moving to Portugal in different areas. And, hundreds of thousands of subscribers are sort of really excited about Portugal, which is quite interesting, because Portugal, I don't think anybody really knew about Portugal 10 years ago. And then all of a sudden we started winning these awards and international tourism awards, and Portugal's now become the world's best kept secret. Well, not really.
Yeah, no, has it become
most known secret?
Has it become more popular in recent years? Like, for example, due to Brexit, there's a lot of, I have a friend who I met a couple of years ago in Indonesia. She's British, and she moved to Portugal. She got a visa there because obviously when Brexit happened, there was no, that removed her access to the EU to stay there at an unlimited time frame. And so I think aren't there quite a few people moving from the UK to Portugal, even now Spain, just so that they can have that access, unlimited access still to the EU?
Yes, there are a lot of people have come over since Brexit. But I think what's happened on another angle as well is that Americans have suddenly become aware of Portugal and are moving over here in droves. And that's kind of like the main impetus, because the English and the British have always been very okay with Portugal, and they've always come down here for holidays because it's only like, a 2.5 hour flight from London. So it's been a very traditional route. But then this whole new market of Americans moving over has been quite marked and exciting.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, because yeah, there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot of movement here in the United States in terms
Yeah.
of people just moving internationally. I mean, I'm somebody who just moved locally, well, within the country, but you know, there's a mass migration happening just because of what we're doing right now, the internet, the ability to connect with someone
Mhm.
completely on the other side of the globe, and now to be able to take your work anywhere is really cool and exciting for you. So I guess long term, what are you thinking in terms of the vision of Algarve Addicts beyond you know, expanding coverage around Portugal? You mentioned maybe you might want to try and build some partnership deals with hotels. I mean, do you have like a clear vision of what it is that you're trying to build for the future, right?
Yeah, and then the most important part of that is building my team and getting the internal sorted out as well. My CRM, customer relationship management tool, is not up to scratch,
Mm.
and I'm really putting quite a lot of development work into that with some developers, and building that out so I can serve people better. Because there's nothing worse than I forget, and I'm getting old now, and I can't remember
Yeah.
every single person. There's thousands of people that I speak to, and I'm like, come on, I need to have a really, really good tool. So that tool, the team building up, being able to ramp up content around, and then just start investing in, really growing the channel. Once it's all solid and set up from an internal point of view, then I can really start growing it. And doing all kinds of crazy things, doing partnerships with collaborations with other YouTubers, which I've already started doing, which is quite fun. But I think there's an art and a science to that as well that I fully
Yeah.
haven't discovered yet.
Yeah, that's interesting in terms of building, you know, collaborating with other content creators or businesses. How have you gone about approaching that? How have you found those opportunities, or have they just found you where people are reaching out and saying, "Hey, we should make a video together"?
Yeah, well, also I've reached out to quite a few as well, and there's a really cool YouTube channel called Expats Everywhere. This guy called Josh. He came down and I did a video with him, and they're based up in Porto in the north of Portugal. And we actually, if I didn't have COVID, I would have gone and done another video with him. But that was we were going to go and do a wine farm review
Oh,
and
wow.
put that on video, which would have been great fun. Except I was lying in bed with COVID, so that didn't pan out. But yeah, I think I did a collaboration with a lady called Liz, who's got a Learn Portuguese channel, and she's based in Lisbon. And she was very systematic about it, and that really helped because she did a video, and then right at the end screen of the video, we said, okay, cool, go and find out more about this in next video. And then likewise, I did the same. So we're really trying to get a bit of cross promotion going across there. Instead of just sort of, oh, hi, this is my friend Liz. You know what I mean? It was a much more systematic
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah. So I think,
Exactly.
and I've looked at collaborations, and everyone says it's the most important thing that you have to do. But to be honest, I don't think I've seen a massive change. Maybe it's just not my thing, but there's lots of people to collaborate with right around here. And to be honest, it's fun connecting with other YouTubers. And, we all got the same things to talk about and the same problems and the same opportunities. So that's exciting. But yeah, collaborations are something which I haven't had a huge amount of success with, but it's something that I'm definitely going to carry on pursuing.
Yeah. It sounds like, you know, with collaborations, it's more about the opportunity to network and make new friends, more so than like, hey, this is gonna, you know, boost my channel and get me another million views or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have somebody, if anything, it's like you have somebody else there who helps you co-create some content that you can use on your channel and kind of takes the heavy lifting off of your end, in terms of shooting and editing everything yourself. Because right now, like, and I'm going to ask you about this too, but you're still essentially operating as like a one-man band for the most part when it comes to shooting and creating all of your content.
Not for lack of trying, but yes, I am. I've tried to
Yeah.
work with quite a few people because I really love working and collaborating with people, and I think that makes life so much more fun. I'm not a solo artist. I'm not greedy. I don't want to just keep all the money for myself. I want to share it and have fun times with people. So I've roped in a lot of friends to come and help me with shooting and stuff. But I still would like to work on a professional or semi-professional level with another video person and another video editing person, and also on the business side. So that's something that I've tried, and I'll keep on trying, and it'll eventually work. So it's
Yeah. How do you think about hiring or expanding the team? Going into the future. You have that experience of building like a web dev, a digital marketing team back in the days before there was Upwork, right? Do the same principles apply? I mean, in terms of hiring trustworthy and talented people?
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult. Trusting people is one thing, and you spend a lot of time, teaching people, investing them, taking them around, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, cool, well, this isn't for me, or I've got other things to do, or I want to go to another country or something. So I think that's a tough thing, and sometimes it's hit and miss. Sometimes you can see it coming, and it needs to be very, very well researched. And I think you can ask any recruitment agent in the world that it's a difficult thing, and you obviously have to look at people quite in depth before you commit to working with them. It's an important thing to research people. I think in a very relaxed sort of work style like I have, and this is a very, very small business, people tend to forget all these things. And you're just like, oh, well, I like that person. I'm sure they're going to be fine. And you don't even read their CV or their resume. And I think it's important to check people out. It really is.
Yeah. Likability is just one factor when it comes to hiring someone. I mean, you can't really know whether or not someone is going to deliver or actually do what you need them to do until they work on something for you. So that's always one of the biggest challenges. That's why I love when some people, I don't know if you've ever, you follow Noah Kagan at all on YouTube. He's another great, great business person to follow on online and whatnot. But I think what they often do at their company is they'll hire people for test projects to see how someone is going to, rather you do an interview, but then let's see how you actually do the work. And then if the work is good, let's continue this relationship moving forward.
Yeah, it's definitely, you got to work with people to understand what they like. And then that's what I do. And I'm doing that next week as well. Going to make another video with a local guy. And I much prefer to work with local people because, that's just makes sense, doesn't it? It really does.
Yeah, exactly. Because they know the area, and at the same time, it's like you're giving back to the economy, right? Exactly. Like you're fueling the economy there. So that's really cool. Well,
yeah, and what happens in an environment like this, the expats always try and generally stick together because it's a language thing, and it's really important to integrate properly into society, especially when you've been living here for as long as I have.
Yeah, exactly. I've done the expat thing in a couple places in Medellin, Colombia, and in Bali and Indonesia. And, you do kind of have this little pocket of people who are also foreigners that you hang out with, even here in Oklahoma, where I moved to. I mean, I was brought here by a program that lures remote workers here. So a lot of those people end up becoming friends, but you have to make more of an effort to like integrate yourself into the community and actually get to know the people who are from that region that you're moving to. That takes effort.
It does, yeah, and it gets rewards in the end, but it's it does take effort to break through that.
Yeah. Well, Nick, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Video Craft Show presented by Video Husky. Obviously, I got to hit you up when I go to Portugal. I have not been to Portugal, actually, amazingly. Like I've been to a bunch of other parts of Europe, and I'm glad that I at least know you now because I can hit you up and ask you for some pointers and some tips.
Yeah, we got a ensuite bedroom, so yeah, for sure, you got to come and hang out. We can do some crazy stuff here. It'll be fun. It'll be great.
No, I'm looking forward to that, and I sincerely mean that. So we'll definitely have to connect once I make it out there to Portugal. But as we wrap up here, why don't you just let everybody know where they can find you, your website, YouTube channel, any other thing that you want to plug and promote.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Jonathan. Yeah, algarveaddicts.com, and the YouTube channel is Algarve Addicts, and then Instagram is there's also an Algarve Addicts Instagram, but I'm having a bit of an identity crisis. So I've got Nick Robinson's life as well. So take your pick.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick. Thanks so much for hopping on the show.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Video Craft Show presented by Video Husky. Want to remind you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's where we're posting majority of the time all of the content that we get from these interviews. And also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. And join us on our email list too. Visit www.videocraftshow.com to sign up to our email list. It's one of the best ways to get regular updates on when new shows are live here for the Video Craft Show. As I wrap up, want to go ahead and give a shout out to Gio Fernandez, my guy producing and editing. He is the producer editor extraordinaire of the Video Craft Show. And also got to shout out Paulo Lopez for all of his help on graphics. Now, if you need a full editing team to help you edit your videos because you're sick and tired of how much time it takes you, the hours and hours of time it takes you to edit your videos by yourself, and you're in luck. Visit www.videohusky.com to learn more. We can help you out there. I am Jon Santiago. Tune in next week, or actually every other week, for another interview, another episode of the Video Craft Show presented by Video Husky.